Today I'm going to be talking about the web of knowledge. And the web of knowledge was basically an idea that Mr. Parker started back in the early 60s. He really didn't fully implement it, the web of knowledge, probably not till the late 70s, early 80s, not till he went into the 24 technique system. And basically what the web of knowledge is that what he wanted to do is to kind of break down the attacks from the most simple to the most complex. So if we kind of look at the system, or the Kenpo system, and we say, well, what would be the most simple attack in the street? Then obviously that would be a grab, either a grab or a tackle. So if we look at all our number one techniques in the system, from yellow, in this case, up to second brown, basically they're all grabs, okay? And then we say, well, what would be a little bit more dangerous than a grab? Then we can see that a push would be a little bit more dangerous. And again, if we look at the techniques from yellow belt all the way up through green, in this case, then they're all push techniques. Then from there, we say, well, what's a little bit more dangerous than a push? Then we know that a punch would be a little bit more dangerous. So now if we look at all the number three techniques and we go right ahead and look at them from yellow all the way up through green, then we can see that they're all punch techniques. And then from there we say, well, what's more dangerous than a punch? Then we know that a kick would be more dangerous, and that would be this category number 4, and that would be where now all the techniques from yellow belt all the way up to all the way up to green belt, they're actually kick techniques. Then category number 5, when we say, well, what's more dangerous than a kick? Then we can say either a hold or a hug, okay? And basically, if we look at some of the techniques, like for example, in yellow belt, what we have capture twigs. This is really a hug technique, okay? If we look at orange belt and we say, well, what would be the number 5 technique for orange, then would be gift or destruction. That would be a hold technique. Then purple belt would be crushing hammer. That would be again a hug technique. Then we have repeated devastation for blue, and that would be again a hold technique. And then when we go into green belt, we have squatting sacrifice, and that would be a hug technique. So basically what he does in this case, he goes, hug, hold, hug, okay? Then from there, when we look at category number 6, where we say, well, what's more dangerous actually than a hug or a hold? Then this would be choke techniques, either choke or a lock. And basically now we have, like in technique number 6 for yellow belt, we have the grasp of death. Then for orange belt, we have locking horn. So now we got choke. And then from there, for when we go into purple and blue, we have capture leaves, and then we have entangled wing, and that would be lock. And then from there, when we go into technique number 6 for green belt, we have escape from that, and then we go back to a choke. So we have choke, lock, and then we have basically another choke in green belt. And then category number 7 is saying, well, what's a little bit more dangerous than either a choke or a lock? And this would be weapon techniques. Now, the only belt that really doesn't have any weapon techniques is really orange belt. That's why sometimes, we say that orange belt can be the weaponless belt. That could be the thing to the belt. It could be the opposite belt. It could be the extension belt, because for the very first time now we begin to do extensions on techniques. But basically that would be the techniques the way we do them, in terms of following the web of knowledge. Then from there, the process repeats, but with certain attacks they get eliminated because they may not be as common, okay? So basically that would be the web of knowledge. And the way Mr. Parker put the system together is that he was able to kind of put everything where everything again fit in a certain order, So like for example, if we look at a technique like the first 3 techniques in yellow belt, okay, well, we have a grab, then we have a push, and then we go right ahead and we have a punch. Well, when we look at the lay sword, the opponent's really attacking you with the right side. When we look at like a technique like alternating mace, you have now the opponent pushing you off both sides. And then when you have like the third technique, sword destruction, now you have the opponent is punching you off the left side. So basically you have an attack with the right, you have an attack with both sides, and then you have an attack with the left side. When we look at the first technique for the first three belts, we do the same thing. We have the late sword, clutching feathers, twirling wings. Those are the first three belts. And basically, again, it's the same idea. But again, they're all grabs because they're following the web of knowledge. When we look at the second technique, basically, for the first three belts, in terms of push techniques, we have alternating mace. And then I have trigger salute, and then we have snapping twig. That's why sometimes I ask students, I say, why couldn't glancing salute be number 2 in purple belt? Well, because what it does, it follows that order in terms of switching sides, okay? Even the last three techniques for yellow belt, if we look at the last three techniques, we have attacking mace, mace of aggression, attacking mace, and sword and hammer. Mace of aggression is a two-handed lapel grab, attacking mace is a right punch, and then basically sword and hammer would be a left-handed grab. Even the most common attack in yellow belt, if we look at what is the most common attack in yellow belt, there's really grab techniques because that is the most simple attack in the street. We go right ahead and we have the lay sword this with the right side, mace of aggression this from both sides, and then we have sword and hammer this off the left side. Even if we look at the last three techniques, in the first three belts, we basically, Mr. Parker kind of followed the same concept. We have sword and hammer, which is off a left side grab. Then from there we have crashing wings, which is with two hands. And then we have flight to freedom, which is a lock off the right side, okay? So that is the web of knowledge. What I strongly encourage all of you to do is to get volume 5, Infinite Insights into Kenpo. And that Mr. Parker explains the web of knowledge there in a little bit more detail. Thank you very much for listening to this tape, okay?